just had my first fantasy draft this past weekend. Kody, I don't know about you, but it doesn't feel like the fantasy season until you get that first draft out of the way. Ours a little bit early this weekend, but I have a couple draft-filled weekends, the next two coming up. So as the commissioner of my home league, I had to get this one out of the way. Went pretty well. Kody, you're still waiting on your first one, or did you have one this weekend?
Nope, still waiting on my first one. I've done plenty of best ball drafts over the summer and over the past couple of weeks, but I have not had any redraft leagues. Ours is going to be the first one. Then I'll have one the following Wednesday, and then one the following Sunday, and then I have another league that's actually in the and possibly getting canceled, which would be my fourth one. So waiting to see what happens there. But yeah, haven't had one yet. I cannot wait for Saturday. This weekend's going to be a great time, and can't wait to get our draft on. How many mock drafts have you done since you've set it up?
I have done, I think 3 at this point. I tried to include one with, I had a buddy join, and so we did it together. It was a little clunky on Sleeper, so I need to kind of do some fine tuning on that. But yeah, I am definitely psyched for this weekend. That's our big one for sure. I don't know where it relies on your priority list of fantasy leagues, but it's definitely number one for me. So yeah, I would hope that it's
As
also
long as
number
we're
one
doing
for
this
you.
podcast, it will be by far number one. Because if I can come on here and just drop my balls on everyone and let them know I won, I will do it in a heartbeat. So,
Yeah, you have gotten close the past couple of years, as have I. So hopefully one of us can pull it off this upcoming year. Today we are going to do a little rookie running back preview. That's actually going to be at the end of the episode. We're going to kind of just go over where we lie on rookie running backs draft value and kind of how their preseason/training camp performance has affected their current ADPs and just overall value moving forward. We have some risers and fallers. That one a little bit more general, not necessarily just rookies. And then I also have some news and notes as well as a couple week 2 preseason observations. Not quite as much to make not quite as much to make of week 2 after week 1. There was not a lot of starters playing, but we had a few things to take from it. So we'll go over all of that stuff. We have some really interesting news and notes items as well. Actually, I'm excited to talk about a few of these things. But before we get to that, we have a couple hot takes for you. Kody, I will go ahead and let you kick it off because it is football related.
absolutely. Mine, I feel like we actually had a little bit of a discussion beforehand, and I feel like a lot of big football people are going to be on the same side as we both are. But I feel like the casuals still just love this so much. And for me, I think Hard Knocks is completely overrated. I think if it wasn't for the lack of football leading up to it, like if Hard Knocks were to, for some reason, come out, after week 0 of college football,
Yeah.
I don't think it gets nearly the shine. I think it's honestly not really that much fun to watch anymore, just because it's not really it's obviously football related because you're in there with the team, but it used to be a look into the front office and how players were looked at and stuff like that. Now it's basically none of that, and it's a bunch of just random guys that obviously this year at Aaron Rodgers, which is a huge part of it. So I mean, he's kind of driving the whole thing. But outside of him, it's just been it's been boring. It's been boring for years now, honestly, and I'm just not a fan anymore. And I just think that there's a lot better football content out there than Hard Knocks nowadays.
Yeah, definitely something I feel like that's been watered down a little bit as the years have gone on. A pretty novel idea when it was introduced. I'm not even sure, maybe 10 years ago or so, but I feel like with each passing year, it's one of those things that it's kind of lost its shine. And at this point, I agree, it's not nearly as much of a story maker as it maybe was back in its infancy. But hopefully they can, I don't know, either just drop it or find a way to spruce it up a little bit to a degree where it makes it interesting again for the legitimate NFL fans.
If it's going to be like this, just drop it. It's not even, I mean, I get it because again, we're deprived of football at the time that it's coming out. So it's going to have its general audience that'll
Right.
just watch anything football related at that time. But the content itself is nowhere near what it used to be. And even if you're a fan of the show, I think you can at least agree with that
I
premise.
wonder what demographic is mostly watching Hard Knocks these days. If it's casual or maybe not even really NFL fans at all, then I guess I get it from the NFL's perspective, just because they want to try and bring those people in. They're not going to have to convince guys like us to watch the NFL because we're going to probably either way. So I get it from that perspective, but I think you're right. It could use a little bit of a jazzing up or maybe just a total reconcept on the idea. But I'm going to go off the board as far as NFL goes with my hot take. Kody, I think you're going to go ahead and agree with me based on your pet situation at home, but mine's right to the point. Cats are better than dogs, guys. I've always been a cat guy going back to my young childhood. I don't dislike dogs. I have a couple of them. They're great animals as well, but I just feel like a cat's affection kind of means more than a dog's affection. A lot of times, all you have to do to earn a dog's trust is, give them a treat, say hi. There's not a lot to it usually, but a cat, I feel like when a cat likes you, you really had to work for that. So I just appreciate that aspect of the animal dichotomy there. But Kody, do you agree with me, or do you just have cats out of necessity of living in an apartment?
Yes, Nick, I do tend to agree with you. As someone, if you are watching on YouTube and you've watched any of the other FanTC content, I think that you have probably seen my cat somewhere in the videos at some point. He is pretty much always next to me. I mean, the setup I have now no longer allows him to sprawl across my desk because he would do it just about every single podcast, and it made it extremely annoying. So I literally have a stool set up with my laptop, with my camera, so that way I could do the podcast, and there's no room for a cat. That is how much my cat loves me, and I think that with that, I just whatever it is that made him that way, he loves me quite a bit. I don't know if I necessarily agree because I haven't really had a dog since I lived back home with my mom.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like if I had a really cool dog that, I really, really loved, I might be on the other side of that. I understand where dog people come from, but on the premise of a cat's affection does mean more, I do tend to agree because I also have another cat that cannot
Yeah.
stand me for some reason. And it is like the most heartbreaking thing in the world that this cat just hates my guts for some unknown reason. So I actually really like that hot take. That was good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's always been a pretty close hot take that I've pretty much held since I was a kid. But yeah, it all kind of comes back to the fact that, when I'm like sitting on the couch and my dog's laying next to me, it's like, I think you're laying next to me because there's not somebody else here to give you any attention. But the cat would go hide under the bed if somebody else was there, and I just appreciate that about them. But anyway, enough about that. Let's go ahead and jump into these news and notes. I feel like it's actually going to take a little bit of time here, but Kody, you want to hit that drop for me?
Have you heard the news?
Time for Nick's news and notes from around the NFL.
Love it. Let's go, Nick. What you got for us?
Excellent. Gets me pumped up. All right, so I'm going to lead off with this. This was actually broke earlier today, so we're not going chronological here because this one is probably the biggest one off the top. Jonathan Taylor, he has been given permission to seek a trade. Miami is in on negotiations reportedly. Now, Austin Eckler was also given the same permission earlier this summer. Nothing ended up coming of it. The Chargers ended up just restructuring his contract. So this doesn't mean that he is definitely going to get traded. I guess I'll save my thoughts for that after you give me. What do you think? What do you think about this information? Are you assuming he's going to get dealt? Do you think he's going to still be with the Colts week 1? How do you see this shaking?
Since Miami is in on it and they just do not seem to be very satisfied with the running back room, obviously talking with Dalvin Cook beforehand, it seems like they're going to add somebody at some point. Jonathan Taylor would obviously be a huge add. Outside of Miami, I don't even can't believe I'm saying this considering we have a bet on it, but I think Minnesota would be a really cool spot for him to go to. And then outside of that, like we kind of just have some weird in and out kind of places that don't really make a lot of sense. Even really Minnesota doesn't either. They don't need to spend more money on offense. They're going to have to pay Justin Jefferson and obviously their quarterback situation. Honestly, that's what I don't get is At this point in camp, if you are making the trade for him, like, is the expectation that you are also then going to give him a contract because you're going to be giving up assets and a big running back contract, which no one seems willing to do right now. So if that is what he is expecting a team to do, I think it's wrong on Jonathan Taylor's part. I also have heard this on multiple podcasts, so this isn't new information, but it's unbelievable how Jim Irsay will be like, well, you're not worth paying, but at the same time, it's we want a first round pick for you. Like if someone's worth
Yeah.
a first round pick, they are most likely also worth being paid. So that makes
Right.
zero sense. I don't really know. I think he ends up being on the Colts. He may have a chance to hold out. He's 24, didn't have the first round contract. I wouldn't if I was a running back, just because I don't think you're going to get value by holding out. But if he is the only situation where I could see it somewhat making sense if he really wanted to make a stand against Jim Irsay and the Colts. But I do believe he will be a Colt week 1 and he will be playing.
Yeah, I think he'll be a Colt week 1 as well. And like you said, he's going to play because he's got 1 year left on his deal. If he comes out of this, comes out of this year healthy, looks good, I think he'll get a decent contract as far as running backs are concerned. He's still pretty young. They could franchise tag him depending on what the number is, but that situation could get very untenable very quickly. Considering that it already is that way, I feel like the Colts might try to at least leverage that into a trade at that point, because Taylor would probably not play on the franchise tag next year. But yeah, being that it's so close to the start of the season, I think if you're a Taylor owner, you'd probably rather him just stay with the Colts. I don't see him getting traded to a different team and automatically being the bell cow number 1. The only teams that are going to trade for him are teams that are in Super Bowl contention right now. So it doesn't make a ton of sense for one of those teams to trade significant assets for him. Like you said, they want a first round pick. They're not going to get that. They might get a second and a future, mid round pick or something like that. But to do that and give him a contract is just not something these type of organizations do. The Eagles, the Chiefs, those type of teams do not pay running backs big bucks because it's smart to not do that. So I don't see him getting traded. I think a dark horse, if I had to throw one out there, would be the Bears. I think it makes a little bit of sense. They still have a ton of cap room. They are still going to be a super run-heavy offense, presumably. They have a young, decent running back on a rookie contract to send back to the Colts, to kind of fill that void that Taylor would leave. So I think they are the one team I could see making sense, but I don't know if they're close enough to being a finished product as a team to make that type of move. But I think the rest of the teams you laid out, like Miami's the favorite, like we said. I just don't see it. They spent a third-round pick on A-Chain already. Are they really going to give up 2 more picks and or a first rounder for Taylor and pay him big money when they have $30 million a year for Tyreek Hill? They haven't paid Waddle or Tua yet. So I don't know if I see it for them, but I think he ends up on the Colts week 1 and he will probably play the year out in Indianapolis. This is just a little too late in the game for this news to come out.
I actually like your Bears take, because the Bears are set up very similar to the Colts right now. So if you were to go to the Bears, it would be a very, very similar situation. So both the player and the fantasy player, I think, would work very well on the Bears. So
it would be good for Taylor too, like you said.
Yeah, if that happens, that's super cool. But I like I said, it's probably Colts or nothing. If he goes to Miami better cash in on a Super Bowl, because they are putting everything on the credit card and just. They're basically pulling a Rams situation, and I don't know if Tua is on Matt Stafford's level and going to be able to take them to a Super Bowl. So I actually saw a Facebook comment say that Mike White is going to be the quarterback that takes Miami to a Super Bowl. So if that's the case, I'll be wrong. But Miami being in on it's no surprise. I couldn't imagine them pulling the trigger on that.
Yeah, Miami would be great for Taylor too if they did actually trade for him and pay him money. They would be saying they're going to invest significant assets in him, and we already saw, they plugged in Mostert, they plugged in Jeff Wilson. Both of them were very productive when they were given work in that offense, and Taylor is younger and much better than both of those backs. So for Taylor's sake, I think Miami's probably the best landing spot. I just don't know if I see it happening. The Chicago Bears coach, Matt Eberflus, former Indianapolis Colts defensive coordinator as well. So another connection to that end. I will surely gloat if I end up getting that one right. Although I don't know if I'll be thrilled with as a Justin Fields fantasy owner that Taylor is going to be taking a lot of the goal line work. But anyway, we'll see how that plays out. We're expecting him to stay on the Colts at this point. Good news for Josh Jacobs, owners / drafters. He is expected to end his holdout and report to the team before week 1. We expected this, but this has been widely reported by some credible sources, so I think we can pretty safely say he will be back with the team and he will be playing this year for the Las Vegas Raiders. So you can cross that concern off the list for Josh Jacobs. Go ahead and draft him in, round 2, early round 3 if you can get him. So if you've bought the dip on him, congratulations.
Yep. Couple names here. Would you take him over Bijan Robinson?
No, I'll take Bijan.
Bijan Saquon?
I'll stick with Saquon, but that's close.
Derrick Henry.
That's a good one. I'll still stick with Henry, but again, I think
So he's
you're
right
in the same range.
So you probably have about a mid-second rounder.
That much. Yeah, I'd say I moved him up ahead of guys like Joe Mixon, Jonathan Taylor. I would struggle with him and Pollard. I'd probably still take Pollard, better offense, but he only moved up a couple spots. I think I was never really completely buying that he was going to sit this year out. So I have other concerns as far as the Raiders offense is concerned that kind of scare me off of Josh Jacobs, not necessarily the contract situation.
Yep. I'm probably maybe a little bit higher. I'd probably still go Saquon and Bijan over him, but I think I'm taking him over Derrick Henry and Tony Pollard pretty comfortably. So just again, the offense is scary, but the player that we saw last year was just phenomenal. So obviously you hope a contract issue doesn't come up at all during the season. I don't know if that's even a concern at this point anymore, or if he's just
I
gonna
don't think so.
It's just so weird for all these players to just be like, hold down, just like, all right, I didn't get a contract. Darn it, here I am. I'm going to show back up.
I think it's kind of an emotional thing for them when they end up making the the statement at the beginning of camp, and then the reality really sets in for them. They've seen running backs go down this road and have it not work out for them. A lot of these guys just want to make their money while they can. The shelf life is very short for running backs. It is not a fair system, but it is the system they have right now. So. They are going to have to, you got to play it when $10 million is on the table as a running back.
Yep. The next three are all injury related. You want to blitz through them real quick?
Yes. JSN, Jackson Smith and Jigba of the Seattle Seahawks. He has a broken bone in his wrist, had surgery to repair it. That sounds bad, but only a 3 to 4 week timeline on this one. So I guess this was a relatively minor injury. I haven't seen a ton of detail as to the exact nature of this bone in his wrist. I feel like anytime you have surgery on your wrist, it should be a longer than a 3 or 4 week timeline. So I guess keep your eye on this one, but week 1's not even off the table for him. I think maybe he drops a round, maybe 2 in redraft, but I think if you were a believer in Smith and Jigba, then you weren't probably going to start him the first couple weeks of the year anyway. I don't see a huge hit to his value at this point unless something comes out this injury is worse than we thought. Are you still okay drafting him in, say, the 8th or 9th round in redraft?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Redraft, I'm a little, I guess, more not iffy on him because of this, but just because of the Seattle situation. Sure. In any kind of keeper format, I will snag JSN every single time right there because next year he's probably a top 3 round wide receiver if for some reason Lockett's no longer on the team. So in any kind of keeper league, I will snag up JSN anywhere I can. Redraft, it'll depend on who else is on the table. I think I like some other rookies a little bit more year one with their situations, but still a huge fan of JSN, not saying anything negative about the player.
Yeah, definitely could have been worse. Again, I think slight hit in redraft, but keeper leagues, we're not really changing our valuation on JSN. Devon A-Chain, he is considered week to week with a shoulder injury. This one a little ambiguous. We haven't gotten a ton of updates as to the exact nature of this one. But it looked like he was running behind Mostert and Jeff Wilson anyway. So I think the steam has certainly been knocked off of the A-Chain train here so far in camp. I think in redraft, you're probably staying away. If you want to stash him on your bench, be my guest, but you're probably going to end up dropping him at some point in the first couple weeks. Again, just this is a guy to keep your eye on in redraft and keeper leagues. Take your shot in the late rounds, but I think you're going to have to wait a little bit for him to start making an impact.
Yep, I agree with what you say there. He's been going pretty high in both mock drafts and best ball drafts this offseason.
Thanks.
I'm in the next segment, ADP Risers and Fallers. If we did this in 2 weeks, right before the last weekend of drafts, Devon A-Chain's going to be a faller. He's going to fall quite a bit. And like you said, if you want to take a late round flyer on him at that point, I'm okay with it, but he's probably getting dropped just due to lack of usage. Yeah,
I like taking a flyer on either Mostert or Wilson, and they're going later in drafts still at this point, last time I saw ADP-wise. So go ahead and take your shot on one of those guys. You could have found yourself a starting running back in round 12 or 13. Terry McLaurin has turf toe. This is not good news. MRI did not show major damage. These these things similar to ankle sprains kind of have degrees of severity. Doesn't look like he's on the higher end here, but they say week 1 still in play. This is just an injury that, like a high ankle sprain, can kind of linger longer than, the player may anticipate. And it may linger longer than, they may be playing through turf toe for a few weeks after they get back. So we can't count on Terry McLaurin once he's, quote unquote, healthy and on the field to be 100% necessarily. So yeah, these injuries are tough ones. They can linger. I really hope he just, maybe sits out the first week or two and really gets this thing healthy before he comes back. But this has me a little concerned. I was already the low guy on Terry McLaurin here, so I don't want to pump the brakes too much because I'm a little biased. But Kody, how do you feel about this?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously not great for him. I mean, in drafts, he's another guy who's probably going to end up. I wouldn't doubt it if him and Jahan Dotson get pretty close in drafts by the time, maybe not by the time we're drafting. I think he's still going to have a little bit more value than Jahan, but probably by the weekend later when I'm drafting in one of my other leagues, I would bet they're very, very similar in ADP.
He looked great.
He's been solid for fantasy football. It's just, yeah, I don't want to draft an injured player. Basically, everyone is going to have some kind of minor injury throughout the season. I don't want that to be going into week 1. Like, there's going to be injuries on your roster all season long.
Yeah.
Why would you just start that headache to start the season? So I'm not going to say he's off my draft board because I think that's one of the stupidest things people say this time of year, but he's definitely falling. If he falls in drafts, I will still scoop him up. I would probably prefer Jahan Dotson if he's still going later, even if it's just a round or half a round, whatever it is. But if Terry's going to fall, I think I'm still going to be okay picking him up. Just at current ADP or even maybe a round less, I'm probably passing on him.
Yeah, buying injury dips on players that get hurt in the preseason, especially with soft tissue injuries, usually not a great idea. I know we just recommended still taking your shot on JSN. That one I feel a little more comfortable about. A broken bone is pretty black and white. Once he's healthy,
Yep.
I think he's going to be good to go. But Terry McLaurin, like we said, there's going to be a lot of gray area here. So hopefully he waits the appropriate amount of time and comes back when he's 100%. Otherwise, this thing could linger, who knows how long. Last bit of news here. Sam Howell and Baker Mayfield named starting quarterbacks for their respective teams. Sam Howell, the Washington Commanders, Baker Mayfield, the Tampa Bay Bucks. I think that completes our list of quarterback battles. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe every NFL team now has their week 1 starter named. I don't know how, I don't have a number on this, but I feel like this is probably one of the earliest times we've had all 32 starting quarterbacks completely figured out, even before the last weekend of the preseason. So just an interesting little note there. Someone please prove me wrong in the comments, but I believe this is August 22nd is pretty early for that.
Yeah, are we sure Jared Stidham's not going to beat out Russell Wilson for the Denver job still?
Yeah, God, I hope not. If so, then I'm canceling my tickets in October and just I'm gonna save the stress and not go all the way to Denver to watch them instead.
Fair enough. All right, that's fair. I just wanted to throw a little dig in there, but we'll talk about Sam Howell in the next segment, so I don't really want to talk about him too much. Baker, cool. I bet Kyle Trask gets out on the field at some point this season. I don't see Baker 100%. Starting all 17 games at all, so it's cool he got the nod, but all it tells me is Kyle Trask is not going to be an NFL quarterback. So if you're holding him in any kind of super flex dynasty league, unless you feel like you're going to need a spot start, you don't have to just hold Kyle Trask, hoping that he was going to turn into anything after Brady's retirement.
Yeah, I mean, if you were holding him to this point, I feel like he might be just he's going to play, so you might want to just hold on to him and give him a look in an actual NFL regular season game. But like you said, yeah, it's not a great look that he's been there for 2 years and still can't beat out Baker Mayfield, who just got there this summer and looked horrible last year in Carolina. A little better in LA, but yeah, that's not a high bar of competition necessarily. Let's go ahead and jump over to our preseason week 2 observations here. I only have a few. Again, there wasn't a ton of starters playing across the board on this week 2 slate. So we only have a few observations to go off of here, but the Giants have been one of the most impressive first-team offenses so far in the preseason. They impressed again in week 2. Waller looked really good on the one drive that he played. I believe it was only one drive, but they scored a touchdown on it. Daniel Jones had targeted Waller 4 times on the first drive, had 3 catches for 30 yards. Are we moving up on him? I know we were both a little lower. I think we had him at tight end 9 when we discussed the tight ends originally. Have we risen on Waller at all, or are you still kind of holding firm there?
I mean, he's probably moving up over some guys. I don't mind drafting him at his ADP, but I'm definitely not reaching any more past that. I think he has difference making potential at the tight end position. There's really no doubt about that. It's just I don't really want to have to trust Darren Waller. He's not, I hate using injury prone, but he's basically been injury prone for the past few years. So to trust him to stay healthy and spend a fifth, sixth, maybe no, it's definitely fifth, sixth round pick. There's still some really good players there. So personally, when I'm doing a lot of the mocks for our YouTube, I tend to just stay away from tight ends unless I can get Mark Andrews or Travis Kelce falls to the end of the first. So I probably am not changing up on that strategy too much. If Waller falls a little bit, he gets into the 7th, I'll take the shot on him, sure. But at ADP, it would depend on who else is on the board.
Yeah, I kind of echo your analysis there. I think we do this a lot in the preseason. We're always trying to find tight ends beyond the first 1 or 2 guys that are going to be difference makers for us. It's a hard position to fill during the year. No one likes to stream all year long. So we always want to find that round 7 tight end that's going to be a solid starter for us all year long. But every year it does not seem to work out that way. So Darren Waller, I'm like you said, I'm okay taking a shot on him in the 8th round, 7th round, maybe if you're really bullish. But I just don't want to overreact too much to this preseason action. It did look really good. I like the target share. It's it's in conjunction with what we've heard from beat writers about camp. Jones has apparently been targeting him quite a bit, but I just feel like it's going to be hard for him to be consistent in a passing offense that just doesn't offer a ton of upside in totality in the Giants. So I think we're both probably still a little bit off of Waller, especially if he's rising into the 5th or 6th round. Give me running backs or wide receivers in that area, no doubt.
Without a doubt. Yep.
This one, a slight positive piece for Dameon Pierce. His stats don't look great at the end of the day, but he ran ahead of Devin Singletary. He received 3rd down work. They gave him the first 2 drives of the game. Then he came out. C.J. Stroud still played another drive after that with Singletary, but they didn't bring Singletary in, on the drives to mix in on 3rd downs or anything like that. They just gave Dameon Pierce both those drives. So, who knows what that means? Maybe that means it'll be 2 drives on, 1 drive off for Pierce, or maybe that just means he'll be the primary runner. But I think either way, it's encouraging that, him and Singletary aren't splitting snaps right down the middle with the first team or anywhere close to it. It looks like Pierce is the clear lead guy here.
Yep, I think he is right where he's at ADP currently. I think if you can keep taking him there, I would grab him there. I think he's a good candidate for 0 RB if you need some middle round running backs. So take your shot on him. Singletary has not really proven to be that great of a running back with his time in Buffalo. So I think what we saw from Dameon Pierce last year was truly impressive, especially on a bad offense. As long as he stays healthy, I'd bet that he beats his ADP this season.
Yeah, I like what you said there with the 0 RB build. I think it just kind of depends on how your roster construction is going when you get to, say, round 5. If Pierce is there, I think he's good value there. He doesn't offer a ton of upside just because the offense is going to, cap it a little bit. It's going to be hard for him to score double-digit touchdowns with Houston, but he's going to get a ton of work and be really solid every week, I believe. Similar to last season, but with a slight uptick in offensive production overall, I think, with Stroud under center. So in the 5th round as an RB1, a guy that's just going to be a really solid running back for you. I like him quite a bit, especially if that means you've loaded up on wide receiver, tight end, or quarterback in the first 4 rounds. The Steelers' offense looks good again against the Bills ones. Jaylen Warren breaks off a huge touchdown run. Kody, I don't know if you have any specific thoughts on anyone in the Steelers' offense, but just give me some comments on the Steelers as a whole. Is there anyone you're rising on, or are you, again, just trying to fan the flames of preseason action?
I've actually been a little bit excited about the Steelers this offseason in general. I actually have a decent amount of Deontay Johnson and Kenny Pickett in best ball lineups. I was looking at my exposure today and was kind of surprised how often I've actually drafted both those guys. I just think, Kenny Pickett in his 2nd year should have a little bit of a uptick in efficiency. And just overall just knowledge of the offense. Obviously, the upgraded offensive line, at least we hope it's an upgrade. I know we're bringing a rookie in, but hopefully it's got to be better than last year. I can't remember where they were at, but I know they were towards the bottom of the league. And then, but the guys I'm going to stay away from, honestly, there's going to be George Pickens on this team. And then I'm before I say Jaylen Warren, do you think Jaylen Warren can break out and become the RB1 on this team?
Because
that's how I feel. I can't make an argument to draft Jaylen
Warren, but he looks good, Kody. I really like the way he looks on the field. I think he really offers something that Najee does not. Just like as a player, you can really see it when he gets out there. I mean, Najee Harris is not running by safeties like Warren did on that long touchdown run. I know it's one play and you don't want to overreact to that, but I could legitimately see Jaylen Warren being a usable asset, especially in PPR leagues as a flex. And then, having that built-in upside like Kareem Hunt for so long. Whenever Nick Chubb went down, he was an RB1. I think if Jaylen Warren were to be the feature guy here, he'd be, a top 12 running back immediately, as well as a usable asset. So I think if he's in the, 10th, 11th round, he's one of those guys like Samaje Perine and others that you can take, maybe actually use him while he's healthy, and then he's also a great handcuff. So I like the idea of taking him, but don't go crazy. Not 8th or 9th round. I'm probably looking elsewhere.
Yeah, I feel like people sometimes give this Jaylen Warren and Najee Harris backfield. I've seen it on Facebook a little bit in some different groups, the Zeke Pollard treatment from last year. I don't think we're getting that level of production from Jaylen Warren, but like you said, is he probably more like an A.J. Dillon style? Probably. He's going to get enough to be flexible, if you need a player, but probably just a very high-tier handcuff is the way that I see it working out. But you never know when it comes to running backs. If one, I don't want to say Najee's shot, but if Najee's not as good as the Steelers drafted him to be, and Jaylen Warren is constantly outperforming him, we've seen it across the league. They will move off of running backs in a heartbeat for a better running back, especially younger, potentially cheaper. Is Jaylen Warren younger? I know Najee's very young.
He is. I bet because he was a rookie last season. So if he's younger, he's maybe a year younger. I know Najee was pretty old when he came into the league too. I think he was a 23-year-old rookie. So I will double check that real quick. But
I'm looking up Warren.
Warren's 24.
Okay.
And Harris is probably 25, if I had to guess. This is fantastic audio. Yeah, he is 25 years old. So only a year younger, but still slightly younger. This situation really reminds me of the Chargers a few years ago.
There you go.
Comes in. He's more of the pass catching role type of guy, but then he just is a better player, and they start slowly letting him take over the work for the first round running back that maybe wasn't quite the dynamic player they thought he was going to be. Obviously, I'm referring to Melvin Gordon and Austin Eckler. Not calling Jaylen Warren Austin Eckler, but you never know. This situation is kind of playing out similarly to this stage. I think he's worth a flyer. I'm probably a little higher than you are on him. Honestly, it's just because of the player. I like him a lot. And lastly, for preseason week 2 observations, Washington's offense looks great. I think that was probably one of the best preseason games of all time, by the way. Baltimore didn't really play a ton of their starters. Their 24-game win streak finally comes to an end. It took a 49-yard field goal at the gun to win 29-28. The Commanders ended their very lengthy winning streak in the preseason. But Sam Howell looked great. Dotson looked really good. Unfortunately, Terry McLaurin did get banged up in this game. Obviously, we referred to that earlier with the turf toe, so that's disappointing. But they were playing against Baltimore's backups, so just remember that as well. But the running backs were really involved too. Robinson, he got 4 targets. Gibson actually got 4 or 5 carries, pretty similar to Robinson. They pretty much just split work. I was impressed with this Washington offense. Again, Baltimore backups. It's preseason. Not overreacting, but I was already pretty high on guys like Dotson and Robinson anyway, so this is kind of just confirming those feelings I had.
Yeah, another name I want to throw out there, maybe he can get some Daniel Bellinger type treatment, is Cole Turner. It looks like Sam Howell has really been targeting Cole Turner in the game. And then I watched, it was a long third down he was looking for him on, as well as another pretty important play on either the first or second drive for the Commanders. So just so he's a tight end, like Nick said earlier, we don't want to dig into this and just find reasons to pump up the tight end position, but this guy's already going to be a last round pick if you take the flyer on him. I just think it's interesting. Sam Howell looked pretty strong for, being preseason, not against the ones. I understand all that, but there's a certain level of when you watch Trey Lance play and when you watch Sam Howell play, there's a different level of quarterback between those two players, and there's no doubt about that, whether they're playing the ones or they're not. So that's how I felt about that situation. If Terry McLaurin's going to be injured or limited, I think Cole Turner could come in and just make a little bit of a statement. I don't think the Commanders have really anyone else in the tight end room that's going to be that level of a pass catcher. So just a little name I wanted to throw out there. I think that, could be interesting. Like I said, maybe gets a little Daniel Bellinger treatment to start the season from the podcast.
Yeah, both of us are going to have to pick a flyer tight end. I guess you might settle on Cole Turner. I'll have to go digging for a not top 20 guy that we can follow this year and hope he scores a couple touchdowns. Zay Flowers played on the other side of the ball here. He looked really good. He had a sweet touchdown catch where he made a few guys miss. So I'm very high on Dotson and Flowers in rounds, say 7 to 9. I'm hoping to get at least one of them in all my drafts. Any other observations from week 2?
Nope, I am good to go. Let's jump into some ADP Risers and Fallers. I believe you got these off of FantasyPros. We're going to start with some Risers here.
Yeah, they provided me with a pretty nifty article, actually, that kind of laid all of them out.
Beautiful.
From the beginning of camp to now. So that was helpful on FantasyPros, a pretty reputable site similar to NFC. A lot of sharp drafters using this site. So I think it's pretty useful. First riser is Romeo Doubs. He has jumped about 15 spots from 140 to 125. He's had a productive preseason with Jordan Love under center. Consistent steam from beat writers on the connection with Jordan Love. We were mentioning this back in mini camps in June. So it's been a constant theme for him. Are we buying this rise here for Romeo Doubs, and does it make you downgrade Christian Watson?
Are we buying the rise? I guess because I've kind of always been in on Romeo Doubs if I don't get Christian Watson in a draft. He's been going in the last or second to last round in most of the mocks on Sleeper. So if he continues to be down there, absolutely. If he comes up a couple rounds, it's still a flyer, level pick. I'm perfectly fine with it. Any kind of PPR format, I think he gets a little bit of a bump I'm willing to take. And then does it make me downgrade Christian Watson? I wouldn't say it makes me downgrade him too much. I still think Christian Watson's the more overall impressive athlete and probably is more explosive on a week-to-week basis. I think if we got to see both players complete ceilings, I think Christian Watson's would be significantly higher. But, on an offense that may already be somewhat limited passing in the with Jordan Love, I don't know how much they're really going to trust him in the regular season. So, Christian Watson is one of those guys that if there's really no one else that I like where he's at, he's my tier break. Like he would be at a tier, and then after him would be a couple of guys a little bit lower. If he's the last guy available on that tier, I'll scoop him up, but I'm not reaching into or ahead of his ADP to get myself Christian Watson.
Fair enough. I think Watson's volatility is kind of baked into his ADP already. He would be higher than a round 5 pick if you were guaranteed elite volume from what we saw last year. He's a pretty good player. He's obviously got the top end speed. So I think the role in the offense is obviously the question. But at round 5 ADP, you're kind of you're already getting the discount on the questionable role in the offense. I don't think much has changed for him. But Romeo Doubs, I'm okay taking the flyer. Here are some guys that are going around him in ADP. So let's see who we'd rather have here. Juju Smith-Schuster just ahead of him. I'll take Doubs. Bateman right behind him. I would probably take Doubs there as well.
I am hoping to have Zay Flowers. So if that's the case, I will take Doubs. Otherwise, if I don't have Flowers, I'd probably go Bateman. And that's just my lack of trust in OBJ coming through.
Yeah, Zay is 2 spots ahead of Doubs. I think we'd both prefer him to Romeo Doubs. Michael Thomas is 3 spots ahead of Doubs, who I would probably – I'll take Thomas, but I don't have a strong lean. I think they're pretty similar. They profile pretty similarly at this point, kind of run-heavy offenses, possession-style receivers.
Yeah, I would say I'd probably still lean Michael Thomas just slightly, just because if he does happen to have a bounce-back season, I think his ceiling's higher than Romeo Doubs in the Green Bay offense. So I'd probably slightly lean Michael Thomas, but I really like where he's going. I think he should be right around all those guys.
Yeah, solid value at his ADP, even after it's risen a little bit. If you want to take the shot in round 11 or 12, I'm just fine with it. Probably better in PPR than non, so just consider that. But we're I don't know if we're buying the Doubs hype necessarily, but he's still at a point where you're not killing yourself taking him in the round 11. It's a fine pick to make in that range. Calvin Ridley's our next riser. We've been talking about him quite a bit, so I won't belabor everything we've discussed, but he's looked healthy. He's looked back to form so far in camp. He's gone from 38 earlier in the process to 33 overall at this point. Are we comfortable drafting Ridley in round 3?
Oh man, you are that is tough right there. I personally, I think I'm probably higher on Calvin Ridley than you are. I think I've bought into the hype a little bit, but round 3, that's tough.
It's pricey.
Honestly, probably not. I think that part of the Ridley, the draw to Ridley was that he was such a value when he was going in the mid to late 4th round, or even around the 3-4 turn. If there's a couple guys I don't like as much off the board, I would snag them. But it's probably just going to keep going up. Like the hype for Ridley is not going to stop. If he would have played in a preseason game, maybe got to see him out there on the field in pads, I maybe would be okay with it. But it's very risky, man. It's 2 years off of football that you are trusting to come back here and be really good. So that's a lot of talent here.
Another ADP game, Kody. I'm going to list the 4 wide receivers, 2 ahead and 2 below Calvin Ridley. Rank him inside of this grouping. T. Higgins, DK Metcalf, Deebo Samuel, and Keenan Allen. Rank Calvin Ridley amongst those 4 wide receivers.
Yep, absolutely. I'm sorry. Who was the first name you said? T. Higgins. I'm taking T. Higgins over Calvin Ridley for sure.
Yep. T. Higgins number 1.
I would take Calvin Ridley over DK Metcalf.
Okay.
I would take Calvin Ridley. This is tough. I think I'd probably take him over Deebo. And if it's for my wide receiver 1, I may consider taking him over Keenan Allen for the complete upside play. If I already have a really good wide receiver 1, I probably would just grab Keenan Allen at that point. So maybe a little bit of a cop-out on the answer there, just building the roster in my head. But I think Ridley's upside, if he hits, is extremely high. You are just taking on a lot of risk for a 3rd-round pick. So like I said, I think I'd take T. Higgins over him, and then if he's my wide receiver 1 in the 3rd round, I better hope my running backs can carry me, and I'm going to be taking as many wide receivers as I can in the middle rounds to supplement Ridley if he happens to not be all that we are hyping him up to be.
Yeah, this one is so tough for me. I just loved Calvin Ridley as a player before, the suspension and the 2 missed years essentially at this point. So it's a really tough call for me. I think I would mostly agree with you. I'd have Higgins ahead of him for sure. I would take him over Metcalf. I think the one guy I would be different on is I would take Samuel over Ridley. I just think he's being a little discounted right now. He's probably not. He's wide receiver 17 in ADP right now. He is better than the 17th best wide receiver in the NFL, in my opinion. Keenan Allen is completely about roster construction. I think you made a good point there. Ridley is certainly a better profile for half and non-PPR leagues. I'd probably take Allen in full PPR, or if I was, building a roster to swing for the fences for whatever reason, I'd lead Ridley as well. So you made a good point there with roster construction and Calvin Ridley. Do you have anything to add there?
Nope. Let's get on to our 3rd guy.
One more riser here, that is Alvin Kamara. It's a modest rise from 73 to 68, but one I think we did not expect coming into this process here. I think the confirmed 3-game suspension, rather than the allure of a 6-game suspension or maybe a suspension deeper into the year if he were to, appeal any of this stuff. But a solid 3-game suspension is, manageable for fantasy owners, I believe. And then in combination with the Kendre Miller injury, he's actually back. He played in week 2 of preseason. We did not expect that necessarily, so I don't know if we can count on that anymore, but that's caused the modest rise here. Do we like Kamara in round 6? It would be round 7 in 10-team leagues, but round 6 in 12 and 14.
I don't think so, personally. I'm pulling up ADP now. Let me get some names around him. Because, again, that really what it comes down to. I mean, the player overall, I think, has just been on a little bit of a decline. Just, when we look at his numbers from last year, I do think Jamal Williams poses a decent threat. Ooh. Oh, let's give it a second.
I've got it for you here if you want to look at it.
There we go. Sorry, my thing cut out for a second. I'll get that edited out.
But
Again, I think he was on just a little bit of a decline from last year. I do think Jamal Williams poses a threat. Even when Kamara comes back, Jamal Williams was an elite goal line guy last year. The Saints would be crazy if they didn't use him in a similar kind of situation. So I'm just gonna go. I'll go two names above, two names after. I'm gonna throw it to you this time and put you on the spot. Would you go James Conner
Sure.
or Alvin Kamara? And you can change your answer based on format because I think James Conner has a very strong value in PPR leagues.
I think Kamara does too, though. They profile pretty
He
similarly
does.
to me, but
Yeah.
you don't have to wait 3 weeks for Connor. It is a worse offense, but he has less competition. That is an interesting one. I'll probably go Connor with the suspension as the tiebreaker.
Yeah, this next guy, I think I know where you're going to go, and I think I might actually be on the opposite side. Cam Akers or Alvin Kamara.
Oh, that is tough. I've been rising on Akers a little bit just because his opportunity is
Okay.
so good, but I'll take Kamara. I will still just take Kamara just because I think there's a chance Akers is unusable by week 4 if the offense just goes away from him for whatever reason. We've seen it happen before.
Yep, 100%. If you're drafting Cam Akers, you're really hoping that what you saw at the end of last season was just a fully healthy Cam Akers and his ACL is
You've heard that
fully
before,
healed
too.
and he is ready to roll. Yeah, I totally understand. I
This is
trust
not
me
the first
from a
time
guy
he's
who
had a
drafted
great stretch to end
Akers
the year, so.
and held him way too long last year. He would probably come back to bite me. The shot's tough because, like you said, by the time Kamara comes back, you might be dropping Akers to go pick up another asset, and you're going to be really wishing
Could
you had
be.
Alvin Kamara. So that one's a
Akers has
tough
higher
one.
upside, though, no doubt.
Yeah. The next guy I think is pretty obvious. Isaiah Pacheco, Alvin Kamara. I think we're both pretty easily
Give
on
me
the
Kamara.
Kamara side there. Absolutely. Okay,
No,
interesting one. Dalvin Montgomery, Alvin Kamara. You still on Alvin Kamara there?
Dalvin Montgomery, is this some new
I
combination of players that I haven't heard before? Or?
You are 100% correct. You have to answer between both Dalvin Cook and David Montgomery. No, I'm just kidding. David Montgomery.
This is perfect. I'll take Montgomery over Kamara, and I will take Kamara over Cook. So I put them right in the middle, or put Kamara right in the middle.
Perfect.
Of those two.
Awesome. Well, Dalvin Cook
Kamara
is split down
probably
the middle,
in PPR. I think Kamara and PPR were both of them, but in half and non, give me Montgomery.
Beautiful. Awesome. I don't really tend to disagree with you that much. I've actually been rising a little bit on David Montgomery just with the whole Detroit situation. I think their running backs will really benefit if that offense is as good as people are projecting. And then Dalvin, we're actually going to get into Dalvin in the next segment. So let's just skip that point. We'll talk about him here in just a minute. So
yeah,
absolutely.
Let's go ahead and just jump right
fallers.
into him. Let's jump into the fallers. We'll start off with Dalvin Cook here. This one is interesting. It's a modest drop. It's only 72 to 75, but very rarely do you see a free agent sign with a team and then drop an ADP. So not typical. I guess a lot of people were hoping he'd end up in Miami, where he'd be a little bit more of the unquestioned one. That in combination with Brees coming off the PUP list has probably led to him, a slight dip, but still very, very atypical for a decent free agent this late into the game to sign with a team and then dip an ADP. So how are we feeling about him in round 7? I know my answer, but what do you think of him?
This is an interesting strategy. I don't know how it would pan out, but if you could somehow scoop Alvin Kamara and Dalvin Cook, I think I'd be okay with that. I think Dalvin Cook's value is going to be the first quarter of the season. If Brees Hall is still, nursing the knee injury just a little bit, he's probably going to get a little bit more of the touches. But once Brees Hall is healthy and he's a full go, I just don't think Dalvin Cook can keep up with him anymore. So I don't love Dalvin Cook long term. I think if you do have him, at some point he's going to be just a roster clog and quite a headache because you're not going to feel confident to play him as a running back too. But you may be able to flex him if he gets a touchdown. I think that's the conversations we're going to be having surrounding Dalvin Cook when we get to rounds 5 and 6.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, weeks 5 and 6. It is getting late. I am just losing my mind over here. I cannot talk. But that's my synopsis. I'll throw it back over to you.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Cook in this range or even around later. I think he's probably a slightly better version of what we'd expect from Jamal Williams. We kind of laid that out earlier. It's going to be a similar situation. Both of them, obviously Williams taking over for the suspended Kamara for the first 3 weeks and Cook taking over for the injured Hall. who knows how long he takes to get back. But I think once he's healthy, he's a much better back than Cook at this stage in their career. And the other problem that I have with Dalvin is that the Jets have other good running backs. We saw Zonovan Knight be really effective for a couple weeks last year. Michael Carter, not an inspiring back necessarily, but a solid pass catcher, someone who can spell on third downs. And then they have a rookie that's also kind of impressed. Abanikanda, I believe. Hopefully, I'm not butchering that pronunciation, but just a lot of mouths in that running back room, even without Brees. So I don't love Cook even in the 7th round. I think there's other players like a Khalil Herbert, like we just talked about, like a Kamara. I would rather take those guys that are more guaranteed touches, in my opinion, long term. Cook is probably a play, like you said, for the first quarter of the year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, the next faller here makes me very sad, but I had to include it for the people. This is Rashaad Penny. I was very high on him early in the process, but I have definitely cooled off as the tea leaves have, turned against him at this point. He's only fallen 11 spots. I'm surprised. I thought it would be more than that, but he was at 99 overall. Now he's at 110. Preseason usage has been very concerning. He's been playing deep into these second quarters, running clearly behind Swift and Gainwell in these games. And the drumbeat from the beat writers have kind of echoed this sentiment to this point. There's a chance he doesn't even make the roster, depending on how things shake out. So where are you on Penny right now?
Yeah, I mean, not much has really changed. I mean, if he's going at the end of your drafts and you want to take the random shot on him and hope that he still is on the team, like Rashaad Penny's going to get drafted in our mini dynasty league just because of how deep it is. And if he gets cut, someone will happily go pick up someone off the waiver. So I don't hate that. I'm probably leaning Gainwell if I'm taking any of these guys because he's also a super late round guy that has been there. But at the same time, Gainwell was clearly running behind Miles Sanders last year. So if the Eagles loved him a whole bunch, you'd probably think that he'd get a little bit more work last year. It's one of those weird things. Honestly, all these Eagles guys, give me the last one off the draft board. And after week 1 or 2, if I don't see the value, I will be okay cutting bait. I think this is a clear running back by committee. Even I think Gainwell's gotten some hype being one of the better pass catchers, which is basically what Swift was, kind of, I think, brought in to do. So that's kind of confusing. Give me the last one, and I'd be okay with it. If it happens to be Penny, I'll take Penny and just trust his talent to work out. But yeah, I don't really feel too good about any Eagles running backs in general.
Yeah, I was really high on Penny early in the process. I just love his talent as a pure runner, profiled similarly to Miles Sanders, in my opinion, coming into training camp here. But yeah, tea leaves have been really bad so far, and the preseason usage has, again, we don't want to react to that stuff, but a lot of the times it does tell us where coaches kind of see their current roster, as it pertains to the depth chart. So the fact that Penny is running as the 3 or 4 is a really bad news, especially because the first and second downs is where he's going to make his hay. So if he's that far back in the pecking order right now, it doesn't look good. I'm okay taking him at 110 just because, again, that's not going to kill you at that point in the draft. If that's round 10 or 11, go ahead and take your shot. But I'd probably rather wait till to just grab Gainwell if you are dead set on getting a piece of this Eagles backfield.
100%.
Last rankings fallers, Traylon Burks and DeAndre Hopkins. I tried not to include anybody falling due to injury, but Burks has actually been falling regardless of, it came out that the injury happened, and he has been consistently falling since that point as well. So I thought it was okay to include him. And Hopkins also been falling. This one's a little strange, though. Hard to tell why. Not much has happened in the way of injury or performance to explain Hopkins' fall. I think people are just kind of maybe realizing how run-heavy this Tennessee offense tends to be, and it may be difficult for DeAndre to, be a consistent asset unless he's getting a 30% target share or something like that. But how do you feel about Hopkins in round 5 right now?
Yeah, I'm looking around the guys that he's going around. I mean, we're looking like DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Christian Watson, Jerry Jeudy. I'm taking all those guys over him. So
you haven't said a name
no
yet.
surprise that he's falling in ADP. I wouldn't doubt it if he falls a few more spots. I think I'd probably take him over Terry just based on situation.
Yep.
Drake London, I think I'd take him over Drake London still.
That's a close one for me.
Yeah, it is a close one for me because I do think Drake London's the better player at this point in both of their careers. But your point, again, I'll give you 100% credit this. Your point on just if you're going to draft Drake London, just draft Kyle Pitts in another round and get
Yeah.
that piece of the offense. That's kind of just been ingrained in my mind. So I'm kind of just off of Drake London, where he's going. I think I'd still take him over Christian Kirk, just with the Calvin Ridley hype, but that one's really close to me. And then I think he's probably comfortably over the guys underneath him: Mike Williams,
Yeah.
Brandon Ayuk, George Pickens, Tyler Lockett. So I think he could probably fall another 3 or maybe 2 to 3 spots from where he is even currently. But if he does, I'm okay with it. I don't mind taking the shot on him. I believe he's going into his year 31 year. We typically see wide receivers go 33, 34 before we really see a big drop off. They got a pretty good lead on running backs in that situation. So I don't necessarily hate that. It's just around the guys he's going around, I understand why he's falling in ADP. It makes sense to me.
Yeah, I think the situation was just not quite as good as maybe everybody was making it out to be. Like you said, the only wide receiver we really seen be effective year to year in this Tennessee offense was A.J. Brown, and that was because he was super efficient down the field. That's not really DeAndre Hopkins' game. He's going to have to, be doing it with the 15 to 20-yard chunk plays over the middle and kind of the short area game where he excels. So we'll see if Tennessee's able to adjust their offense to that, but that's not really been their style in the Tannehill era necessarily. So I think that question in combination with the fact that, like you said, he's not necessarily falling off the cliff yet, but he's not getting any better at this stage in his career. He's 31. He's leveled off. I think there are more intriguing, higher upside options in the range he is going in right now that I'd rather shoot my shot on. If he falls to round 6 in a PPR format, I'd probably go ahead and take him there just for the the safety and the reliability. But round 5 still a little too rich for me.
Yep, I tend to agree with you on him. For Traylon Burks, I'll go ahead and take the lead on this one. I think a piece of content I put out, short form content I put out about Traylon Burks. Basically, the reason why I believe he's falling is just we've never seen Ryan Tannehill really support a good wide receiver too. So if you are taking him, you are basically banking on him becoming either the number 1 option in Tennessee or Ryan Tannehill upgrading at this point in his career. I think both are kind of wild. So I do think he's probably has a little bit more upside than the guys he's going around. So I think you'd probably make this point. If you want to draft late in your drafts, you want upside guys like Brandon Cooks, guys like Michael Thomas, Cortland Sutton, Juju Smith-Schuster, all guys going around Traylon Burks. We basically know what they're going to be. So if you want the upside shot, it would be Traylon Burks. But at this point in my draft, I'm probably looking at tight ends, probably looking to see what quarterbacks are available if I don't have one. This is not my favorite range of wide receivers. If we wait just a little bit longer, you get into guys I like Quentin Johnston, Zay Flowers, Elijah Moore. So this kind of just whole grouping of wide receivers, I'm just not a huge fan of.
Yeah, that's you laid it out perfectly because that's the problem I have as well. I like the player quite a bit. I was going to be really, really high on him if he was going to come into this year as the number 1 in Tennessee. I'd probably would have taken him as a top 25 type of receiver, but I do also prefer a lot of the first and second year guys that are going behind him, like you said, Zay Flowers, Quentin Johnston. Let's see here. There was one more I had, but a lot of those guys in that range I prefer over him already. Jahan Dotson, Jordan Addison. I prefer all those guys to him. If you get into, if he falls a little bit further and you're looking at guys like Juju, Michael Thomas, Rashaad Bateman, Romeo Doubs, those types of kind of lower ceiling sort of plays, I am okay with taking him at that point, but he's got to fall a little bit further for me to be interested because I'd rather just, take whoever at the pick that I'm looking at, Traylon Burks' range and then wait around, grab me Quentin Johnston or Zay Flowers as my, high upside play, and they're going to come into the year healthy as well.
Absolutely. 100%. I think that wraps up some risers and fallers there for you. Obviously, plenty of more that we could get into. So if there's any guys that you want to, you're curious why they're rising or falling, shoot us a DM, shoot us a comment on any of the videos or any of the content on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Be happy to answer your questions. Nick, You gonna have it, or actually, before I send it back over to you, we will have a rookie report. We're gonna go over running backs, wide receivers, maybe multiple tight ends, but at least Dalton Kincaid. We'll see what happens when we get there. Coming out the following day, and then actually wide receivers will be the following day. So should be 3 straight days of FanTC podcast coming your way. So make sure you're on the lookout for those. Make sure you're sharing. Make sure you're subscribed. All the good stuff. Even if you are already subscribed, unsubscribe, resubscribe again. Just make the notification pop off again. It makes me feel good when I'm looking at the YouTube. So appreciate you guys. Nick, any final words for the people?
No, I was just gonna say the rookie reports will be coming out together now instead of at the end of this episode. We ran a little long on the Risers and Fallers, so we didn't want to drown on too long here. We're at an hour, so we'll go ahead and cut it off and then just combine the wide receivers and the running backs into one episode.
Yep, love it, awesome. Nick, I will talk to you tomorrow. Peace out, everybody.
Peace.